Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. This is a show where I take a look at every classic Doctor Who story, plus a bunch of Big Finish audio dramas, one episode a day, 7 days a week. And today, on the 2nd of March, 2019, I am starting a look at the penultimate installment in the third series of Fourth Doctor Adventures, The Abandoned, written by Nigel Fares and Louise Jameson. Of course, Louise Jameson also plays Leela, so we're starting, of course, with part 1. And having Louise Jameson as a writer on this story is an interesting choice. She's written stuff outside of Doctor Who before. I know she's written a couple of stage plays, I think. And she's pretty active. But this is the first time we have a cast member of Doctor Who writing a story for that cast member of Doctor Who. And, well, one of my biggest, obviously one of the biggest triumphs of this story is the Doctor and Leela are characterized amazingly well. It's obvious. It's obvious that Fares and Jameson know more about, know enough about who these characters are and what they are. Also, as characters, they are, they're very interesting together. The Doctor and Leela, they make a good team, and in making it, because they make such a good team, it makes sense that, Louise Jameson, who worked with Tom Baker so often and has done so many audios with Tom Baker now, would obviously understand how to write for the Doctor, how to write for herself, and that is just the characterization is spot on. You have Leela asking questions about paintings. There's a point where she sees Starry Night in the TARDIS and kind of basically calls it a bad painting because basically she doesn't sort of understand the Impressionists era. She doesn't understand, what the whole point of it is. She sort of comes at it from a view of art should be, closer to a photograph, and art should, be recognizable as to what it's supposed to be, and not just we're doing art because art is abstract. Which is something I think is really interesting just about Leela's character here. She understands art, but she doesn't understand different types of art, which is, it's an interesting notion like this, that I think works really well. Another interesting aspect of this episode of The Abandoned is that this story was not directed by Nicholas Briggs. Something that I find, that you may find shocking, because he essentially directed the first 6 of this series. He directed all of the first series, and I think he directs most of these. But oddly enough, this one is directed by Ken Bentley, who, and you know what, honestly, it gives it a nice sort of different stylistic approach than Briggs's direction, which is kind of nice after six stories directed by the same person. There's just a slightly different energy and a different feel to the way the audio is produced. And it's something that I think is done really, really well. Now, The Abandoned itself, I find interesting is that fans don't necessarily like this one, yet from part 1 alone, you've already got a very interesting concept with some interesting characters. The idea is that there's this place called the Point of Stillness, which is, I guess, sort of dealing with the theory, and it deals sort of with the theory of time travel. Like, if you go faster than the speed of light, time changes around you. I'm mucking up the theory of relativity. But that would explain being traveled forward in time, but how do you travel backward in time? The Doctor gives a nonchalant science fiction we're not meant to understand answer, because obviously we don't have theory on how to travel. There isn't any sort of hypothesis on how we would be able to travel backwards in time. We just only have the hypothesis of the theory of relativity, which is this is kind of how you would travel forward in time. Now, what is even more interesting about this episode is that we are dealing with people who are sort of ancient Gallifreyans. We were going back to sort of in time, this place called the Point of Stillness, where there are these 3 ancient Gallifreyans who want to retake the Doctor's TARDIS, because apparently it's their TARDIS. Now, I don't think that's actually meant to be taken literally. A lot of the story seems to be, this episode in particular, seems not to be meant to be taken literally. Like, they aren't literally saying this is their TARDIS. It's a TARDIS that they want to use. And it's, like, this is sort of this reality-bending sort of first episode that I think just works really well. It's very surreal. And I think Fares and Jameson do a good job of writing a surreal introduction to the story. I think perhaps they could have tried to explain it better. And with a lot of the Fourth Doctor adventures, it would probably work a bit better had there been um, more than 2 episodes to play around with. Because again, still only having 2 episodes. This is only the first episode, and it feels like a lot of the ideas are sort of concrete, set in stone. There's not too much we can do to change it, and we're trying to rush through it. But luckily, they are both Ferris and Jameson use 30 minutes. They don't go for a standard 25-minute episode. No, they're trying to fill out the 30 minutes. But not, I don't want to say as best as they can, but with interesting dialogue, and interesting characters. There's also like this painting character who's been trying to paint her way out, and it's like a lot of this episode just sort of deals with this painting dimension. We're not doing a very hard science fiction story. This is going to more science fantasy, surrealist sort of experimental thing that Big Finish does quite well, and I think. I think the cast does an amazing job bringing this sort of surrealist vision of the story to life. Like you get a real sense that everything in this world is completely weird, and you don't quite understand what's actually going on and where the characters are going with this. Just sort of to create a really good open beginning episode. So all in all, I'm going to give The Abandoned Part 1 an 8 out of 10. It is the 3rd of March 2019, and I just finished listening to Part 2 of The Abandoned. And Part 2 of The Abandoned is probably one of the best episodes of the Fourth Doctor Adventure Series 3 so far. And this is the penultimate story, so the story coming after this has quite a bit to live up to. But this really sort of finishes out Leela's character arc. They basically, the titular Abandoned basically try to make it so that the Doctor thinks Leela is just, sort of this myth. Like, she's a vision, she's not there. Like, and again, a lot of this is of course done surreally, very much in the style of, are they really there or are they not? Or are the characters all just sort of, imagining this as it goes on? It's, sort of the surrealist nature of the book, of the story, is something that I think really fascinates me. Mainly because it's a very interesting take on the plot, in that, the Doctor and Leela, are stuck in the TARDIS, heading to this point of stillness, and of course the days say, keep making it, a very personal plot, and in making it a very personal plot, you get this really good sense of, you get this really good sense that the world itself, is, that the story, goes on. The story goes on and just sort of builds around this sense that you have these crazy characters, who are obsessed with art. There's this odd through line of this story of just this commenting on art and like what it means that the Doctor stole the TARDIS and who the TARDIS originally belonged to. A lot of odd little things like that, that just sort of, that just sort of works really well. It's these nice, it's this nice little, it's this nice little sort of story where things are, things are built around, that things are built around art, and Leela is basically building a story all around, the fact that her father dies. Like, she finally has to come to face with it, and again, the Doctor and Leela talk about it, and they basically decide that we're going to put it in the past the final time, and we are going to, to move, uh, to move past the fact that her father died, and her father was a good man who cared. Again, her father has been just sort of this demonic sort of sort of an internal demon type character, who's basically been who's basically been attempting, um, whose death that Leela has been attempting to sort of come to terms with, because there's the real sense that Leela has learned a lot just from being with the Doctor, that um, that he she and the Doctor are sort of on sort of this almost equal ground now. And this is an episode that really ends that. Honestly, this episode feels more like a series finale than anything. It feels like this is where this third series of audio adventures are supposed to end. It feels like we could move from right here right into the next television series. It feels like a good stopping point. Yet, what's going to be odd is that we have one whole story after this, which this is going to be a hard story to follow up, because it's been a really good, solid story. It deals with painting. It's surreal. It's one that you probably need a couple more listens to fully understand. And maybe on the first time, the first time you listen to it, you may not particularly like it. But it is a good enough ending, and it really does. It really is a story that ends up giving us a simple, a nice solid conclusion. You have the real sense that everything is meant to sort of come to a conclusion here and give us the final episode. It really cements this story as a really good one. So I'm going to give The Abandoned Part 2 a 10 out of 10. And we averaged this scores to give The Abandoned a final score of 9 out of 10. Thank everybody for watching this installment of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. As always, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And join me next time when we take a look at the finale of the third series of Fourth Doctor Adventures, our final audio drama, before we start season 15 of the televised series of Doctor Who with ZYGON Hunt.